So what are some of the advantages that you've found since living in an Airstream?
I think living tiny, I guess as people call it, I guess that's the like term for it now. Uh, it's definitely helped us to realize that we don't need a lot of the stuff that we thought we needed when we were living in a normal apartment. Because we've always lived in like apartments and stuff. We haven't had a house yet. But also with like renovating it ourselves, we learned how to fix things when they break, which I think is something that our generation doesn't really know a lot of. But I mean, I guess kind of starting now, people are doing a lot of DIY stuff, so that's cool. But we've learned how to like fix things when they break, and we're able to move our house with us. So Rubius, our dog, he always has his own home. He's never stressed out when we move. We have our own bed, that we sleep on. It's ours. No one else sleeps on it. So we have everything that we need with us, and we can bring it with us, which is really awesome.
Yeah. For sure. I know having your own space, especially when you're traveling, doing all these assignments, everything outside of your world is changing, but then you kind of have this like place that's yours still, which is really special, I think. Do you guys generally like when you're traveling, finding a new assignment, is finding a campground like a big piece of taking a new assignment? Is it challenging finding places to kind of park your RV while you're traveling?
Um, I'd say that was probably the most difficult part of doing travel was to find two travel jobs that were close enough together and then a campground where we could live that was as close to halfway in between as we could. So like I said, at our first assignments, we were living with her parents until we moved into a pop-up camper. And that commute was anywhere from, we ended up at a campground that was about an hour away for each of us. And then our first assignments where we were living in the Airstream was in Texas. So we finished the renovation and then both found travel jobs in Texas. Actually, I found a travel job in Texas first. And then we decided to move there because it was in the Amarillo, Texas area. So we thought, okay, that's a decent enough sized place. So we'll find more jobs. We moved there at a campground that was $400 a night, which in hindsight is $400 a month. $400 a month, which in hindsight is great. And
Okay.
yeah,
Miss that Texas economy.
yeah. So that was really close to my my assignment. That was 15 minutes away from my job, and it took Hannah 3 weeks to find a job once we moved there. And her job was actually just through the same company that I was working for anyway. They did up a travel contract with her and sent her to the 2 or 3 other buildings that was all of this one company. So we kind of made it work there, which was nice. We were at least both employed and working mostly full time, but then COVID hit when we were in Texas. So we were a little bit worried about our jobs, like I'm sure most people were. Luckily, we both kept them throughout the start of the pandemic, last March. And I think we were only in Texas for 5 months. It felt like a much longer time.
It felt like forever.
Watching what was going on with COVID and reading about all of it. And, changes were going on day to day in our buildings. Here's different guidelines. Here's different stuff to wear. Here's different things to do. So it felt like a really long time in Texas, but we both had good, stable jobs there. But we decided we'd go to California because there hopefully would be more job availability, and we'd be able to live closer because Hannah's jobs, although she had a few places she could go to, they were all over an hour away.
I was basically driving the entire panhandle of Texas like every day.
Yeah.
But it was better than the Atlanta, it was just me and the cows and the windmill, so it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But I think the hardest part for us finding campgrounds is we're both PTs, so finding 2 travel contracts that are for PTs, because I've heard like PTOT couples typically have a little bit easier of a time, or like, SLP, PT, like different, what's it called? Disciplines have an easier time when you're going together, but when you're the same discipline, it's kind of hard to find two jobs close together. And then finding a campground, we always try to keep the commute equal for both of us, but so that's definitely the hard part, is finding a campground. Finding a campground that will let you have an older camper, which luckily now we have upgraded to a newer camper so that we can travel longer.
That factored into the decision, because we were led into one campground for about 3 weeks when we moved to California, and then they kicked us out, and we think it's probably because our camper was 50 years old, but it doesn't look 50 years old. It looks 30 years old.
It looks like a super cute hipster vintage Airstream.
But
I don't know what the problem was.
A big appeal to going to California was the job availability was better here, and we could hopefully find a campground in between two jobs, because that was what we were finding to be the most difficult part about planning our travel placements was, okay, we need to have these two jobs close together, but also find a safe and affordable campground. Because there's plenty of campgrounds in between two jobs in California, but you might pay $2,100 a month or $1,800 a month, and that's like renting an apartment. So we were like, what's the point of traveling in a camper if we're going to pay for apartment prices?
Yeah, it can get pricey, like the Bay Area in California. We have some friends that travel in like the Pacific Northwest, and those campgrounds are super pricey. So if you're in the middle of nowhere, like where we were in Texas, it can be really cheap and save you lots of money. Luckily, where we are in Northern California right now, we're in a rural area, so it's affordable again. But when we were near the Bay Area, it was like, this is how much it is for a campground? Holy cow. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.